Evening all, Daniel Hand, RPG therapist, coming at you with another geek out with another RPG therapist colleague, this time the wonderful Dani Welch. Dani and I have known each other for not very long at all, but I'm afraid we're just twinsies for life. Sorry about that, Dani. So welcome to the channel. Thank you for agreeing to come and have a chat.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, because again, we've kind of been aware of each other for a little while, not all that long, but Facebook, I stayed away from Facebook for literally decades because people sold it to me as, oh, go on Facebook, you can get in touch with all the people you went to school with. And my response was always, I've spent 10 years trying to forget the people I went to school with. Why would I stop now? But yeah, Facebook has introduced me to so many people like yourself. So yay.
Hopefully it's a yay.
So yeah, just to start us off, would you like to tell us a bit about, the who and the what behind yourself, how you got into your day job? Obviously you've got a fair few toys behind you, which kind of gives a hint as to what your main day job is, but also the geek side of things and how you got into RPGs, and yeah, give us the life story.
Okay, I'll do my best. I have been, well, so first of all, my qualifications are associate professional clinical counselor. So I am, coming up on a year and a half into my associate hour gaining. I work at a nonprofit agency with kids, adolescents. I also work with a few adults. And I'm up in Northern California, so about 5 hours north of San Francisco.
So that's the thing, not being American, I've actually got to work through that sentence in my head. Okay, from there. Okay, yeah.
Even people in the US forget that we exist up here. It's really funny. So we are a pretty small town. I work with predominantly low income population. Everyone's referred through the county, and most people are on state health insurance. So we are working with a lower resourced population here, but the kids are such a joy. I never really intended to work with kids. I fell into it. This was the internship that was available to me when I was going through grad school, and I just love it. I don't think I ever want to not work with kids.
Oh wow, so it's had that big an impact on you.
It has. The kids, even, I mean, their perspectives on life can help shift mine a little bit. It's interesting, and they're so creative in a way that I think adults can lose that creativity a little bit. But the kids, it's so present with them, and it's very in the now. I once had a little girl tell me that she never wanted to grow up because she didn't want to lose her imagination. And then she looked at me and said, "You should get some of your imagination back. It would make you happier." And I'm like, oh,
I felt that in my
that
core.
advice.
Oh.
So the kids are great. And
I
I
don't miss the
have a
crying,
lot
do
of
I?
fun with them. I have a lot of fun with the adolescents too. And I really just started bringing RPGs into the therapy room maybe 6 to 9 months ago. I had a client who I thought it would work particularly well with, and I'd never done it before. I had no training in RPG specific therapy, but it was just, I was using it as kind of another facet of play therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And instead of playing a board game, let's use this instead. And it was so wildly successful with that client. I started bringing it in more. And now I'm sort of introducing aspects to it to clients who maybe don't want to play a full D&D game during therapy, but they're down to create a character.
Mm-hmm.
of like different aspects of them or aspirational aspects of them. And it's been really fun. It's an adventure for sure. It's a learning process.
Oh yeah.
And as far as my experience with RPGs go, I've been playing for a little over 3 years, so not a super long time.
So you're not one of these people who goes around saying, "Oh, I've been playing D&D ever since the red box came out. I'm just you."
I know some of them, but no, I'm not one of them.
They're all so proud of it as well, aren't they? It's like, oh, okay, you were born in the 80s. Congratulations. Not this was born
Yeah.
in the 70s.
I got into it. I started watching Dimension 20 during COVID because I had just a ton of time, needed something to do. Yeah, I know, imagine. And I had it was interesting because I had sort of a preconceived notion of what D&D was. And it was dark basements, Mountain Dew, Cheetos, and there's nothing wrong with those things. I want to be very clear. But it wasn't, watching Dimension 20, it wasn't what I expected. And I mean, it's certainly a credit to the DM and to the actors and the players. Like they were amazing and they made the game what it was. But watching that, I'm like, oh, it can be funny. It can be diverse. It can be inclusive. You can try on different personalities, different genders, and be whoever you want and have fun with your friends and have a fun, goofy time, while also like watching the growth of that show really hit me, because by the end of it, it wasn't just a fun, goofy time. It was emotional. It was impactful. And I love that. I love that we can have fun and be silly, but then also have these huge, impactful moments.
Yeah.
And yeah, really the only this is going to be disappointing. Really, the only RPG that I've played is D&D.
Everybody says that. Everybody who, I mean, I don't think anybody has come on who I've spoken to who has played anything other than D&D, and everybody apologizes for it. I'm just like, you do know that that's okay, right?
I mean, it's okay. I want to branch out. I want to try some new things. And then with the kiddos, I've been using Critical Core with some of them.
Okay. Yeah.
Because having something pre-made and more simplified is helpful for a lot of them, and for me.
Because I have a bit of experience with Critical Core. I've played it, but that we're talking a couple of years ago. I think it might well have been the playtest version. Did they release it? It was very early on when they did the Kickstarter, and so basically what I'm saying, it was before this morning, so I can't remember a great deal about it. Although I do remember the art being lovely. I played the halfling character. It was a bard, I think, and just the art on that page is just, I mean, don't get me wrong, D&D's art is generally amazing anyway, but there was just something nicer about it, just kind of more cheery rather than, that would be it. Was going for the cheery aspect rather than the dramatic, oh, let's go and save the world kind of aspect. And yeah, I mean, how have you found using, because it is basically D&D 5e simplified. Am I right in thinking?
Yeah, it's really pared down. And I found it through a Facebook group. I think I was asking about using D&D in therapy, and I think that's actually how I found the Geek Therapy group.
Oh, really?
Is through that thread, yeah. And it's helpful, especially when clients want to be a caster, because then it's very like, okay, we don't have to go through the build. We don't have to worry about, like, we take out things like concentration. We take out a bunch of like the more complex rules that I'm not necessarily there to work on with these clients. You know, we're not there to learn the game. We're there to learn skills for life. And it gave me language to sell playing RPGs in therapy to parents, to teachers, to my supervisor. I mean, she was pretty open with it from the beginning, but now I'm able to go in and say like, oh, we're working on emotional regulation. We're working on frustration tolerance. We're working on social skills. If I have a client and a parent in the same room, communication skills.
Yeah, I haven't actually done that client parent for, again, a while, but that is, especially as you say, when they're coming to you, there's that just disconnect between parent and child. They're both saying their own thing and just not hearing what the other one is saying. And so sitting them down and putting them into these third-party characters and kind of witnessing the interaction, you know, from up here. Yeah, it's really, it's just all about the communication, isn't it? That's kind of the joy and the strength of RPGs.
And I think it's a lot easier because for some of my kiddos, it's hard for them to tell their parent, I don't think you're listening to me. But it's a lot easier for them to say, hey, my character doesn't think that your character is listening at all.
So I'm sitting here grinning, sorry, because my son tells me all the time that I'm not listening to him. So frankly, I need more kiddos like that, because just fine, not listening to me. Fine, I'm going to go then. Fine, I'm sitting on a chair. What? How is that not listening? Sorry, carry on. I was like, really? Kids can't say that to their parents? Okay.
Some of these parents, yeah. You and your son must have great communication.
Oh, he's a top kid. Sorry, I don't know what happened. But yeah, sorry, I interrupt you because I had to get my one-liner in. Get my dad joke in. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I can, and it's not. I mean, it's not just that. Like a lot of clients have just feelings are very confronting for them, and talking about their feelings is next to impossible. Like I have people who say like, no, my chest hurts when I start to do that, or I feel like I need to throw up if I start to talk about my feelings. But at the same time, I'm like, God, we got to get in there.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not going to get better if we don't dive in. And these characters give them a proxy.
100%.
And that proxy is so valuable. Like I'm able to say like, well, how is your character feeling about meeting all these new people at school? You know, she's a new kid at school. Like, how's she feeling? And they're able to talk about that easier than they're able to talk about them going to a new school and how that feels for them.
Yeah. So that I just kind of going, oh yeah, that's it. The lovely thing about this job, I mean, RPG or no RPG, is just those little moments where you can feel the therapy start to work. There's been not necessarily either a stumbling block or just the standard ease into it, and then there's always that moment where you've gone from to, oh, it's working. And you just frozen on me. You still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay, that's all right. No, you just went a bit.
Yeah, it's interesting with like in that example with that client. Oh gosh, they had a lot of social anxiety around school. So I created this sort of like boarding school that their character was going to, and I took a bunch of characters from my main campaign that I play in my off time. And I'm like, these are now students to meet and interact with. And at first they were really nervous, like their character was very nervous and very shy, but they started to open up more, and they started a band with another character. And it got to the point where I purposely put in a very shy character who like didn't know anyone and wasn't sure how to make friends. And my client's character took him under her wing And I was like, did you notice that you just did that? Like, that's so cool. And I, like, as we were doing this and as her character got more comfortable, I saw this client start to relax, like visibly relax. And that was incredible, because I don't know that I could have gotten there, especially so quickly, without the game.
Yeah. And I mean, I talk about it a lot on this channel, on my book, and anywhere where there are people who care to listen. But you know, the fictional frame is just, it creates something that we don't traditionally have in a therapy room. I mean, this is my therapeutic environment. A single man sat in a cupboard surrounded by a death trap. Sorry, books. And yet, by introducing these characters, these worlds, we get to kind of see what these people are like out there on a daily basis, and either confront them or just show them what's happening for them, show them their strengths, say, look, did you see that? And yeah, they're not. Do you always melt a little inside, like I do, whenever you see a client just make friends in the game?
Yeah.
It gives me the feels. Now, what was it? We played, one of the first things I played was the mine's gone blank. The one that came with the Essentials kit. I Spy a Peak. And there's a part in that where you fight Manticore. And this kid I was playing with, fought the Manticore for a few rounds. I got him down a few hit points, and I said, okay, the Manticore's out of the game now. Not out of the game. He's like, he's had enough. He's had enough fighting. And so this kid asked the Manticore to sit down with him, and they had a picnic together. They're just so cute.
I love that.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, have you got similar moments that kind of just stick with you? Obviously, keeping confidentiality in place, but how are you, I suppose the question is, how are you impacted by these sessions, this play?
Yeah. Gosh. I have my client who's playing with her mom right now. They have very different approaches. Their characters have very different approaches. So in the beginning of the module that comes with Critical Core, a very friendly soup tavern owner ends up ends up getting hit, and he goes down, and he's very seriously injured. And my client, who comes across as a very very forceful person, she doesn't necessarily come across as super compassionate when you first meet her. Her character immediately ran to that tavern owner's side, and she was like, I don't care about the rest of the skeletons coming in. I need to help this guy. And that was so beautiful to see. And it helps to step outside of what I'm hearing from the parents or what I'm hearing from the teachers about this child's behaviors, and to see the kind, compassionate core that's really there. And it was so obvious in that moment. And I think mom saw it too, and mom was kind of almost confused by it a little bit. But this child's character is continuing to display compassion, kindness, empathy. And seeing that is really powerful.
And obviously, not knowing this client or the mother, I imagine with such a forceful exterior, which sounds like learned behavior to me, it's very easy to fall into that routine of, okay, I have a forceful exterior, I'm being told off for having this forceful exterior, so I've got to keep having the forceful exterior just to protect myself from the people who are complaining that I have a forceful exterior. And then everybody forgets that, as you say, they've got that inner core, the soft underbelly. And
yeah, and when given an opportunity to be soft, this client chooses to be soft. And that is really powerful. And the things that come out with clients, like yesterday, it's just yesterday, I have a client who is way too cool to play an RPG.
Of course, yeah. No.
But I had my bag of dice on the bag, or on the desk for another client, and this client was avoiding talking about anything. So she's like, "What's that?" So I toss it to her. She looks at it. We start talking about D&D. I'm like, "Well, I know you don't really want to play, but if you were to create a character, what would it be?" And
oh,
initially,
that's sneaky, Dani. Come on, that's just mean.
I don't. Well, because she did think I was being sneaky. She's like, you're trying to you're trying to distract me. I'm like, oh, you think that's what I'm trying to do? And initially she didn't want to make a character because she was going to make one that was like everything that she wasn't and everything that she felt bad about not being. But then I described my character, like my main character, to her, and she came up with a different idea, and she ended up describing a character that was so much like her, but like just turned up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like her, but maybe tougher, maybe more confident. But through describing this character, she was able to name these positive qualities about herself. Like, she's funny, she is tough. And those are things she's not able to say about herself outside of that. I mean, the power that's within this, the therapeutic power that's held within RPGs is incredible.
And yeah, it's only just now being recognized. I mean, of course there are people who can say, oh, role play has been in therapy for, pretty much since day one, but this form, and it's been going for a couple of years. There are people out there who, this isn't the first time somebody's come up with the idea, but it's still, as a concept, very niche in our profession. I mean, I've had seminar suggestions turned down because people feel that this topic it just wouldn't generate enough interest. I mean, how have you found that acceptance? I mean, you mentioned your supervisor is super open to it, but
yeah, she's definitely interested, and I think it's a new thought for her. No one else at my agency is doing this. But actually, when I told her that I was going to be speaking with you, she's like, "Oh, maybe we could watch it for group supervision." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa."
Excuse me. Well, I was seeing that. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, let's do this. Let's really turn the screws.
So there's definitely interest, and I mean, I know in grad school, because I was talking about being interested in it when I was still in school, and a couple people said that they know therapists who are utilizing it, but not that many.
No.
And I mean, I don't know. I could see it being a little threatening if you haven't played in an RPG before, or even if you have played but you haven't ran one.
Yeah.
I could see that being a little like, oh, what if I mess up? What if I do something wrong? But at the end of the day, these kids are having a good time no matter what. The rules are secondary.
100%. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that's something that we have to get over in this profession anyway, because if you go into your first client hour thinking, I've got this, I'm going to be absolutely amazing. Maybe you're in the wrong profession. Because just imposter syndrome comes hand in hand with this profession, you know, and it would be kind of weird if it didn't. And I've got no idea where I was going with that thought, but it seemed interesting to begin with.
No, I mean, I think I understand what you're saying. Like, you might not know what you're doing, and you might like I've had RPG sessions where I'm like, I think all we did was play a game. You know, I don't know that I did anything incredibly therapeutic. I can't think of an intervention that I utilized. But sometimes playing a game is enough.
Mm-hmm. I was actually, my immediate question as you were talking is, okay, well, how do you tell the difference between a session where you're just playing and quote unquote just playing, and a session, or even a session where it's actually therapeutic? I mean, because obviously the core principle of any therapeutic process is, you know, the working relationship between the therapist and the client. And my kind of base default assumption is that playing the game, if nothing else, contributes to that aspect of the therapy. I mean, how do you, what's your definition of just playing versus, oh yeah, I can see the therapy here?
This is something that I had to work on really hard with my supervisor, with undoing my thinking about what therapy looks like, and especially therapy with kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I think with my adult clients, I can see pretty clearly when the interventions are working. I can see the progress, but with kids, I don't always get to see that right away, maybe ever. And kids like to play games. They don't want to talk about their feelings.
Yeah.
So I really had to undo my thinking of what progress looks like, what work looks like, what my work looks like. And for some of these kids, just me showing up week after week and bringing a game, that's therapy. Having a consistent person in their life,
Mm-hmm.
that's reparative, you
Yes.
know? But yeah, I mean, sometimes we interacted positively. Sometimes they practice social interaction and were appropriate during the session. Sometimes, like with the mom and daughter that I play with, I just want them to interact positively for 50 minutes, really. Like, I want them to enjoy each other.
Mm.
Because parents don't always get to do that with their kids.
Yeah.
So, like, really, I guess widening my lens has helped me with that.
And you've mentioned a couple of times your private play, and every time you've even gone near it, your face has just done exactly what it's doing here. And so I don't need to ask what the impact is, but what, you know, tell us more about that side of your game away from your clients.
Oh gosh.
Oh gosh,
I
okay. Shouldn't I have asked that?
I was both looking forward to this and dreading it because I could talk all day
Please
about this
do.
game.
Please do.
Um, I started playing. I started my I started playing when I started dating my fiance because he's a DM. Um, and he created, like, he had this world in his head and he had all these characters. So we have been working our way for the last like 3 years with some breaks, working our way through this world. And I started out not wanting to be a healer. I'm like, I will be anything except a healer. I don't want to do that. No one else in the party wanted to be a healer. So I got stuck with cleric. but he helped me create a cleric that made sense to me. I am a death cleric, and I based her on a book that I love. I don't remember the proper name of the book, but I always call it the Abhorsen trilogy.
The which thing?
Abhorsen. If you haven't read it, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's
Abhorsen.
necromancers and magic that has interesting mechanics.
Frankly, you had me at necromancy.
Yeah. So that's that, and I got to choose my own deity, and I ended up loving my character. Like, she is so me, and it's funny how I see parallels between us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, even ones that I didn't intend. Like the use of sort of like taking the darkness and using it to heal. That sounds so melodramatic, but she is 21.
Everything's melodramatic at that age, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But and the way that our characters interact in the game, like, it's one of my very best friends is playing with us, and her character has some family issues, which parallel some stuff that's going on with my friend.
Who'd have thought?
And our DM created a storyline within the game for her character to like resolve some of those family issues or like process them. And like that entire session was basically her and the DM just talking, and like in character, but still. And she texted me the next day. She's like, "That was incredible. That felt like therapy. That was so healing." And that's like, well, I'm seeing the power of this game in my own personal life. Yeah, yeah, it's really, and it's fun how it's interesting how the characters can have such an impact on the world. Like, we accidentally created a new death god.
As you do. I mean,
it was an accident, so now we have to go deal with that. And that's another thing that
I'm trying to imagine your DM's face at that point in play. It's just like, why couldn't you have just opened the door with your hands?
That's what it was. All we had to do was kill the current death god, and that's all we had to do. But instead, we invited a lich into the situation, and he absorbed the death god's powers.
And what did we learn?
Don't let the sorcerer hold the book with the lich.
A life lesson that I think we can all use, frankly.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and it continues to be really fun. We are on hiatus right now, but we're going to be doing some one-shots. My fiance will be running some. I'll probably be running some. This is an opportunity to invite new people in, because a lot of people are interested in playing, but they don't necessarily want to commit to a years-long campaign.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm finding it a great way to like hang out with friends, because it's so hard to get people in their 30s to leave the house after dark. But if you say like, no, come over, there will be snacks and we're going to kill dragons,
we will have
then
pizza.
they'll do it.
Yeah, there will be pizza and beer. Look, what else do you need in life? Not a lot.
Yeah.
On the topic of your social game being impactful, I mean, you were talking about your friend for a moment, and forgive me for saying, but for a moment you looked quite emotional. It was obviously a very powerful thing for you. What are your thoughts on kind of the therapeutic value of RPGs? So, just socially, we've touched on that already, but also kind of like the dangers of that. Do you have any opinions / experience / rants to have.
There was a D&D podcast I was listening to last summer, and they touched on this. And one of the guys said, D&D can be therapeutic, but it's not therapy. Like, if you're not working with a therapist, it's not a substitute for therapy.
Completely.
And I think that that's an important thing to remember, because I do think that if we hadn't been as good of friends with that player, like if we didn't know her and know that this was okay with her and kind of get her consent, that like, do you want to do this family storyline? And she said wholeheartedly yes. So I think if we hadn't gotten her consent and we just sprung it on her, that could have really done some damage. Or at least made her feel awkward at the table, which is that's not something we want to do.
No.
So I think that piece is important. If you're going to go into something deep, it's important to get your players' consent.
Yeah, oddly enough, I'm currently putting together a script for a video looking at ethics and using RPGs, and the big one that is really standing out to me is non-maleficence. That's one of the core values over here. I don't know if it's worded as such over there, but basically, if you're signing on to do this work, you're committing to not doing harm, even accidental harm. And yeah, how does one avoid that when working with our clients, but also just in general games? And again, consent is a huge issue of all of this, and so many books and game systems that come out these days have at least a page on quote unquote safety mechanisms like X cards and lines and veils and things like that. I mean, how do you handle both the formulation but also the implementation of some of these interventions that can be quite traumatic without re-traumatizing the client? How do you go about doing that? Oh, sorry, shouldn't I ask that?
No, it's okay. I'm thinking, I'm trying to think if it's come up yet. I mean, obviously at the beginning, like before we even get into it, I check with, are there any serious things that we shouldn't touch on? Like, are you really so deathly afraid of spiders that we don't talk about? I don't need spiders in this game. But then, like, as we're going through it, I think it's the word titration is coming to my mind.
Okay.
Like, put a drop in and see how it goes. And if the client pulls back, if I see them pull back, because you can always tell in their face and their body language, if I see them kind of like closing in on themselves, shutting down, then I pull back. Like, I'm not here, like, obviously we push them a little bit. We push them like, hey, let's look at this a little bit. But if they really close that door, if they slam that door, I'm not coming in with a crowbar. I mean, and the same goes for in the game. Like, there's nothing that can't be stopped. There's nothing that can't be walked back. If they're in a situation and I see them like truly like, this is not a situation I want to be in or I want my character to be in, like, I'm walking it back. I'm shutting that door. You know what? The manticore's down. Don't worry about it.
Let's have a picnic.
Yeah. And I think that like just therapeutic awareness, like as a therapist, that's our responsibility to have the awareness of what's going on with our client and track them. And sometimes they don't know that they need to close that door. And we have to do it. But I mean, I don't know that that's any different from just talk therapy.
Absolutely.
Trying to keep people from getting flooded.
And that's kind of my mission with this channel, with the book, with every time I speak to somebody, it's like, yeah, look, yes, that it has nerd connotations to it. Yes, there are mathy stones that click clack when they hit the table, but it's just a tool to be used as part of your therapeutic practice. You know, you are still a therapist in a therapeutic environment, working with a client to further their mental well-being. Yeah, you're not suddenly turning into some basement dwelling, you know, bald game master in a red robe. And but
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Well, there was, because he was really annoying in that cartoon. You know, he had all of the answers, and yet he never told them anything. It's like, mate, just tell us what to do. But there is still that, just that arm's length, just like, no, fine, you do you. We're just going to stick and ask how people are feeling, and yeah, so just trying to bang your head against, look, this is really good, but it doesn't have to be weird. Don't make it weird. Just play. But also not railroad. I think that was the phrase that was coming to mind whilst you were talking. Just don't be that DM who goes, okay, this series of events has to be followed.
Right. I mean, I think the best quality of a DM is flexibility and open-mindedness and following the rule of cool.
Mm-hmm. Especially when the client's too cool to play. You know, it's like, okay, well, let's okay, challenge accepted.
You know, some of these clients, like that client in particular, I think that I could sell a group to her. Like, I think that I could get her involved in a group. But just where I'm at right now, I don't have the opportunity to run groups.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's one of my goals in doing RPG therapy, is really getting like a group together to see some of this stuff like in the flesh, in action.
Because then you've got things like the outer worlds interactions between the people rather than the characters, you know, and that can come in as things like helping each other with the rules. You know, oh, I need to do this, and where's the spell? Where's it? And somebody, oh, it's on page X, and just developing that relationship, so showing that other people in the world don't have to be intimidating. And yeah, I mean, is that on the cards? Would you be able to do that, or is that kind of a dream for when you're in private practice or something like that?
I don't know. It might be for when I'm in private practice. It'll almost certainly be for after I'm licensed.
Right. Okay.
But that, I mean, it's definitely a goal.
And you mentioned in the flesh there, and it just occurred to me, do you play, are you solely face-to-face clients? Do you do online work?
No, I'm face to face.
Face-to-face. And because oddly enough, I'm now solely remote therapy, and I'm just, and everybody I speak to is like, they're all face to face. Like, I want somebody else's opinion on remote. Come on. And yeah.
I mean, I find remote more challenging.
Okay. Can I ask how?
I don't know, because I have had remote clients. I mean, obviously with COVID, and some clients just prefer to not come in. I'm not playing with those clients, but just even tracking, I think there's something about being in the room with someone that I can almost feel like the shift.
Right.
You know, when their emotions shift, I'm like, oh, I felt that. Whereas virtual, it can be easier for people to mask.
Mm-hmm.
It can be easier for people to be like, oh, I don't want my therapist to see my hands fidgeting, so I'm just going to keep them down here.
I don't know what you mean. My hands never fidget.
It's definitely not terrible. Like I would do remote if a client needed it. But I find that I'm a more effective therapist in person. But that's me personally, and I'm still new to the craft, so.
And it's part of your first few years of practice is discovering who you are as a practitioner. And as you say, that's going to be different for you than from me and from anybody else in the job. But it sounds like you wouldn't, even if you were to do remote therapy with a client, the RPG side you actually wouldn't stick to. Is that you wouldn't bother with?
No, I totally would if they wanted to.
Okay.
If they were interested, why not?
Okay. I don't know. It was just a question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do it. I do it with anyone. I've played with groups online before, and it's still great.
Yeah. Do you have any experience with VTTs or it's virtual tabletops like Roll20?
Yeah. I briefly played in a game in Roll20.
And what was your experience of that? Because there's a huge debate at the moment about the whole. Obviously, Wizards of the Coast are looking at releasing their own virtual tabletop, and there's a huge online debate. Oh yeah, well you shouldn't be playing online anyway. It's all face to face, and I don't know. That's not been my experience, but it's worth considering. I mean, how would you use a virtual tabletop with a client, for example?
Oh gosh, I don't know that I'm not very technologically oriented. So I had a hard enough time figuring out Roll20 as a player. I don't know that I would be very good at it as a DM. That would add a whole other level of things I need to pay attention to. So I'm not against them. I just don't know if I'm the person to be running things on them. But I will, like, I'm happy to be a player in them. And I think that if I was playing with a client virtually, it would probably be just theater of the mind.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe sharing pictures of this is what we're fighting, this is where you're at, things like that. But I again, for me, just no knowledge of who I am. I don't think that I would do well on Roll20 as a DM.
No, and oddly enough, that's how I find theater of the mind is just the easier option. A, because it gives you more to do. You don't need to go, okay, well the map shows this, so this is the way it is. That flexibility you mentioned earlier. But also B, it means you don't have to figure out, okay, what button do I need to press? And yeah, will say this occurred to me a little while ago, but when you were talking about the too cool client, and I was just like, that you are aware that you're not supposed to give clients addictions, right? So when you show them your bag of dice, you are aware that that's not. I mean, would you consider that ethical? I mean, this thing is literally, it's almost too heavy for one hand. What have you done? What have you done to that?
They're so pretty.
We've got about 10 minutes, Danny, just to signpost us towards the end. I mean, yeah, I suppose from the all of the RPG experience and therapeutic, I mean, do you have any particular anecdotes that you'd like to tell us about? And you mentioned your character and how you've created a death god. I mean, just don't give the book to the leech. Come on.
It was an accident. Yeah, let me think here. We were on this island of snake people.
Okay.
I forget their name. They do have a name for the race in D&D.
Yanti, is it?
Yes. Yeah. So we were on this island. They were having a problem because their island was getting taken over by Oilatun, this like sea death god who was trying to like come back, come into the world somehow. So we were there to help them out. And on our way into his temple, which was like this little pocket dimension, we found this book that just sucked us in. And it was, there was a lich there. He wasn't like mean towards us, but he was very much like, he was in this library and he was like, I can't get out. I want to get out. And we're like, okay, we're just going to leave and you stay here. So we got out of the book, and that's when the sorcerer was like, the sorcerer takes everything. He is a collector. So like we kill something, he's like, can I take its bones? Can I take its skin? That sort of thing.
Right. Okay.
So he's like, I'm going to take this book. So he closes the book and he takes it with us. And then by the time this whole dungeon crawl, and we get to this death god, Oilatun, and we're all like, spell slots are low, health is mid, like we're not in a good spot. And his brilliant idea was like, well, I'll open the book and then Oilatun will get sucked into the book and the lich will kill him. But our DM was like, well, it's not going to be that easy. The lich isn't just going to show up and do you a favor. But we didn't know this. We thought it was an okay idea.
Yeah.
So then we all have to go into the book. And we get in there and we finally get Oilatun down to like low health. And then the lich comes out, finishes him off, and takes his power, and then disappears. But our sorcerer still has the book.
Why do we
so
do these
over the last few months of the campaign, the sorcerer has been like spending nights in the book, doing research in the book, and my character is not on board with this. She is very suspicious.
Yeah, I would be too, frankly.
So,
but
the
drama, yeah. Well, it sucks you in. I mean, I was sat there listening to you, just going, "Oh, God, tell me more." What happened then? And that is precisely what we're kind of mining here to use with our clients, because it does the same to them. They're like, no, come on, can we have 10 more minutes, please? And if they get that invested in the character, in the world, and in the thoughts, feelings, and experiences that we're describing, that's going to stick with them. I mean, that story is going to stick with me, and I've only heard it secondhand from you in the space of a couple of minutes. To have actually lived through it, I mean, that's the kind of thing that, 10 years time. So, oh yeah, do you remember that time we unleashed the new death god? Yeah. Good times.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just the fact that, because I've always loved fantasy growing up, loved the movies, loved the books, love all of it. And to be able to participate in some of it, to be able to co-create this. I tell people like D&D is like co-writing a story with your DM, with the other players. Like, you guys are writing this as you're going, and it's a beautiful and really powerful thing. And I'm so grateful that I stumbled upon this. I'm so grateful that I was bored during COVID.
And turn on Dimension 20. Which Dimension 20 was it you watched?
I started with Fantasy High.
Such a good series.
So good.
Anytime your first fight is with corn on the cob, I mean, just a giant sweet corn monster.
No, it was great. And you know what? If I think back in that first fight, the players were not taking it seriously at all.
No.
And then 2 of them died, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, there are stakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that playing with people in my game. I've noticed that with clients. It's like, yeah, there are stakes here.
Good point that we haven't actually discussed. Yeah, it's let them do whatever they want, but also point out that there will be repercussions. Or not, you know, sometimes they're doing things which they're worried, again, you know, in real life, oh, if I do this, something bad's going to happen. So, okay, do it. Nothing happened. See?
And I think that's where being a therapist comes into, like, that's where the therapeutic part comes in, is we're watching them and we're deciding, like, okay, does this person need to understand consequences to actions, or does this person need fewer consequences for their actions?
Absolutely. I appreciate your fairly early stages of your career, but just talking to you for, I mean, what's been 55 minutes? I love the passion that you've got for it. It's just, it makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. So yeah, thank you for reaching out. It's been besties for life, I'm afraid. So sorry about that. You stuck with me.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate that you and other more experienced therapists are paving the way for me and new therapists like me who want to be a little more experimental and be a little creative with our interventions. And it's your book and your channel and people like you who are out there like, no, we've been doing this for a while. We've got your back.
Mm.
That's why I'm able to do this and I'm able to sell it to people.
That's interesting. Yeah. But as your client said, it's a case of getting a bit more of your imagination back. So,
Can never hurt.
the kids say that's the most profound things and they just haven't got a clue. I was like, it's just partly, so yeah, you just need to get your imagination back. So, have you any idea how much you've just shifted my world? It's like, no, can we go and play again? Dani, thank you so much for coming along. Do you have any links, any way of finding you, anything you'd like people out there to know about you, yourself, and thou?
No, not really. I don't have anything to plug.
No, well,
I'm just happy to be here.
well, you'll have to come again. We'll have to. I'm always up for a geek out, and so yeah, we'll keep in touch and
Of course.
welcome dice. Cool. Well, Dani Welch, thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this little geek out. If you have any questions for either Dani or myself, do put them below. But yeah, thank you very much indeed, Dani, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.